Today we're discussing a subject I feel strongly about. It might be controversial, but only someone with my courage and bravery can broach this topic. And that is, Lost was awesome, and the people who hated the ending are wrong, and I'm gonna prove it. Come on this journey with me. Let's dig in. The TV show Lost is known for having one of the most polarizing endings of all time. Many people would go so far as to say it was the worst ending ever, at least until Game of Thrones came along. If you hated the ending, it's probably because you didn't pay close enough attention, and I'm going to explain it for all the peoples to understand, and we will be better off as humans when I'm done. Or maybe not, I'm no futurist. Here we go with a comprehensive review of all 6 seasons, and your Lost ending explained, obviously. If you only care about my analysis of the show's ending, check out the chapter thingies below the video to skip ahead to that part. But you'll be missing out on a lot of fun and evidence along the way, though. It all builds to my main point. I've seen the series multiple times, probably each episode at least 5 or 6 times, because I used to watch them live, then I had a roommate who used to watch them too, and we'd debate the conspiracies over joint viewings, zooming in on minute details of screenshots. Yeah, we were nerdy. I ain't ashamed. I've also done multiple full series binge watchings since it went off the air. I know this show inside and out. There will be spoilers from here on out, obviously. Many view this as the best season of the show, but I disagree. More on that later. The first season is the most J.J. Abrams-ish for sure, but he was only involved with the show's first 12 episodes. He stayed on as executive producer, but had little to do with the content after that. He was too busy Star Trekking and Star Warring. The first season feels like a fictionalized version of Survivor, the most popular show in the world in the early 2000s. There are alliances and betrayals just like on that show. Lost definitely seems like, at least initially, an attempt to cash in on that success. Don't get me wrong, the first season of Lost is great. From a storytelling perspective, it's so clever because you're thrown into the middle of a situation, an airplane crash, knowing nothing about these people and they know nothing about each other, just as it would be if you were suddenly forced to live isolated with 47 strangers. Then you get the slow reveals about each person's backstory, and a lot of it takes you completely by surprise. Prepper and wilderness expert John Locke was in a wheelchair and worked in a box company? Sassy and super cute Kate is a murderer? Schlubby Hurley is a multi-millionaire? Opening these mystery boxes is so much fun, much more fun than closing them. More on that later, too. Season 1 establishes an important formula for the show. There's a minimum face punches per episode, or FPPE, quota, and if Lost falls below that, the quality suffers. It's basic math. Season 1 has the highest FPPE, no doubt about it. It makes you want to click to the next episode as fast as you can. Speaking of, it's interesting to see how this show, which started and ended in the pre-binge era, could be so binge-worthy. How they created something that had never happened before and hasn't really happened since. 120 episodes to build toward a single answer. What is the island? And in the first season, we only get a taste of that whole mystery. We meet Ethan and Danielle, the only 2 people we know of so far not on the plane. There are hints of the others, the smoke monster, the black rock, the hatch, the polar bear, but all of it is vague and non-specific, leaving the answers TBD for the future and spawning endless discussions by nerds like me. It's a wild ride and one that's hard to stop once you start. Also, there should be a drinking game where you chug every time someone puts on or takes off a backpack. You'd get so hammered, bruh. Here are some other ideas for Lost drinking games. Take a drink when 2 people are talking in the jungle and someone suddenly bursts through nearby foliage and surprises them. Or someone suddenly gets handcuffed to something. Saeed interacts with a battery. Someone casually holds a gun with their finger on the trigger. Sawyer takes off his shirt, showing off his disproportionately large trapezius muscles. Seriously, put those things away! Side note, it's funny how all the people on Flight 815 were wearing slacks, dress shirts, dresses, ties. If you've ever been on a Sydney to Los Angeles flight, you would know everyone is in sweatpants and hoodies. Ain't nobody sitting through a 14-hour flight in a suit. Trust me. This is where it gets good. And when Henry Gale shows up mid-season, it gets really good. It's my favorite season, I think. More on that later. While Season 2 lacks some of the immediacy and intensity of Season 1, as in fewer face punches per episode, the larger island story becomes intensely engrossing. No longer are there vague mysteries and just the possibility of other people on the island. Here, we don't get any answers, but we get a real sense of the depth of the island mythology as soon as we open the hatch and see inside. The questions become exponential at this point, deeper and more open-ended. Case in point, in the first season, the previously on segments are about 30 seconds long. In the second season, they're 90 seconds long. That's how much thicker the story becomes. Our mysteries include the hatch, the question mark station aka the Pearl, the orientation videos starring the guy who gives a different name in each video, the four-toed foot statue, the others and their fake beards, the food drops, so many mysteries. Season 2 mainly dives into a self-contained conundrum of what happens if we don't push the button. The deep rift between Jack's science and Locke's faith begins to take shape. This will be crucial in later seasons to the series ending. Also, Sawyer gets a haircut. The cast grows in Season 2 when we meet the tail section people, which is good because the continued flashbacks with the old cast are getting boring. Not as many reveals, just sad stories about their pasts. But ultimately, none of the tailies are very interesting except for Mr. Echo, which is probably why everyone except Echo and Rosa's hubby Bernard are killed off by the end of the season. But it's so much fun to open all these boxes and ponder where the mysteries will end up. By now, you have to be the kind of person who can delay gratification to hang on, because it's clear they're not going to answer everything anytime soon. As a Lost junkie during its live run, I consumed all the peripheral media about the show back in those innocent internet days of the mid-2000s before it turned into the cesspool it is today. One of those things was the Lost podcast featuring showrunners Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof, so I know they had certain feelings about Season 3. And one of those feelings was that they were treading water because they didn't know when the show would end, so they didn't know how many more mystery boxes they could open or when they could start to close the already opened ones and bring the show to a conclusion. So did Season 3 tread water? Let's discuss. The cast in Season 3 grows much larger as we see the whole of the others for the first time. They've ditched the ratty clothes and fake beards, and we see them having book clubs and dinner parties. Ben is a chilling villain, and you can never trust anything that comes out of his mouth. Juliet is also an enigma because you can't tell exactly whose side she's on. I'll bet the scripts for any scenes involving her say Juliet purses her lips at least once per page. Don't turn that into a drinking game, you'll get alcohol poisoning. They're still using the flashback sequences that many shows have since copied. That is, an episode mostly follows the POV of a single character with interspersed and connected flashback vignettes once every few minutes. Think about it. You've seen it on a ton of shows since Lost. But these Season 3 flashbacks are mostly not that interesting. Jack's tattoos, Kate's getting married, Locke joins a hippie commune. The flashback revealing why Locke is in the wheelchair is great, or the story of Claire's real father, but the others I could do without. Anytime some random person shows up in a flashback, my first thought is, gee, I wonder whose brother or sister or next door neighbor that person will turn out to be. Same thing with the island plots in this season. It's a mixed bag. Starting the VW bus they find is dumb, but the reveal of the connection between Locke's dad and Sawyer is awesome. The whole Ben surgery arc is incredibly exciting. The ping pong tournament and campaign to make Sawyer likable are just time fillers. Learning that the others and the Dharma Initiative are not the same people is a great revelation, and that they don't want to leave the island? Huh? Having no answers is torture, and I love it. Desmond becoming unstuck in time like Billy Pilgrim with his premonitions is nice foreshadowing for future seasons. Speaking of Desmond, he's great. So far, we've been treated to several romantic subplots on the show. Jack and Kate, Kate and Sawyer, Charlie and Claire, Saeed and Shannon, Hurley and Libby, Rose and Bernard, Locke and his knives. Many of them are sweet and sad and make me occasionally get a bit misty-eyed, but in Season 3, we meet the best one hands down. Desmond and Penny, the lovers a world apart. I ache for them to be together. Also, real talk, Nikki and Paolo can eat a bag of dicks. Sorry for my language, but I feel that strongly about it. It's fine for a side character to pop up briefly, like the guy in Season 1 who was concerned about a rash he had on his back, But introducing new characters as if they've been there the whole time is cheap. So, in conclusion, is Season 3 treading water? Kinda, yeah. People do spend a little too much time handcuffed to things, and there are too many episode plots that don't contribute to the overall story. Blame this in part on the antiquated TV rule that shows had to have 22 episodes per season so they could run from November Sweeps Week through to May Sweeps Week. If they could have limited this season to 10 or 12 episodes, they could have trimmed a lot of the fat. Now let's talk about the Season 3 finale. It's rare that a book or movie or show can pull off a twist that turns everything on its head yet still maintains credibility. The last flashback in the finale is revealed to be a flash forward. They got off the island, but the show isn't over? And Sad Jack wants to go back? It's genius playing with time again, because understanding the liquidity of time is one key to understanding the ending of the show. And the Season 3 finale makes up for all the slow moments in Season 3, but then again, Season 3 only feels slow when compared to the breakneck pace of Season 4. This season is great, action-packed and a high-octane pace. It rivals Season 2 for my favorite. One argument would be that face punches per episode dips well below 1.0 in this season, but the story still holds my attention throughout anyway. Season 4's flash forwards open up a whole new narrative structure. Instead of the who are these people and how did they get here path the showrunners took with the flashbacks, now it's how are they going to get where they will be. It gives the show a shot in the arm, a much needed new dimension of intrigue. Kate is a son? Saeed is a contract killer? Jack is a beard? Why claim everyone except 8 people died in the plane crash? And who is Jeremy Bentham and why do they care that he's dead? What's up with the fake Flight 815 wreckage on the bottom of the ocean? The extra island cast grows bigger with sideways glancer Matthew Abaddon, Scotch snob Charles Widmore, weirdo Daniel Faraday, ghost whisperer Miles, khaki shorts Charlotte, and Margaritaville pilot Frank Lapidus. Now we're starting to learn how the island interacts with the rest of the world. Back in Season 1, everything felt high stakes all the time, a constant sense of danger. Seasons 2 and 3 strayed from the path in favor of a more contemplative and mythological tone. In Season 4, the high stakes are back, big time baby. This season was shortened to 14 episodes by the 2007 and 2008 writer's strike, which is probably the best thing that could have happened to it. No time for lollygagging. Part of the renewed vigor also has to do with each character's purpose. In Season 3, it was if they didn't know what to do with Hurley, Sawyer, Charlie, and a few others a lot of the time. In Season 4, they don't have that problem. Everyone has a job to do in the overall plot. People who don't serve an immediate purpose, like Claire, just vanish from the story. Time becomes a big theme again, like the clever dual flash back and flash forward in the Jin and Sun episode, as does the rift between Jack and Locke. Two big things that will play in heavily as we race to the end, and an indication the showrunners now could see the end in sight. This is what we want. No treading water. We want it all to tie together and for everything to have purpose. In that reunion of Penny and Desmond, I've seen it half a dozen times, but I still have to wipe tears from my cheeks. Legend has it that when the showrunners negotiated the show's exit after Season 3, they wanted 2 more seasons. The network instead insisted on 3 more. I've often wondered what they would have done with 2 instead. I think the first half of Season 5 would have been appended onto Season 4, and that conjoined season would have told the story of how the Oceanic Six both left from and returned to the island. Instead, we get that spread across 2 seasons, along with an extended deep dive into the Dharma Initiative and the incident referred to back in Season 2, which is what happens in the upcoming season finale. So, the island has moved. Not distance, as you might expect, but moved in time. Up until now, the show has been a mix of logical action like people on a boat coming to kill us, weird island residents with secrets, and mystical stuff like the dead come to life and smoke monsters. But now the show ventures into real science fiction territory, time travel. Off-island, everyone has changed. Bitter Sun is now cold and calculating, Oxy Jack is a stumbling pillhead, Slacks Kate is a mommy, Sad Saeed is John Wick, Hot Pocket Hurley is Haley Joel Osment, because he sees dead people, get it? And somehow, Goth Ben is still pulling the strings. All of these intense character changes, coupled with time-traveling stuff, means Season 5 takes a slower pace than Season 4. It's back to contemplative and mythological, which isn't necessarily bad. But there are still mysteries abound, and they're still creating new ones. Locke is now alive again? Why did Kate suddenly agree to return to the island but refuses to talk about Aaron? What is Charles Widmore up to? And where is Freaky Faraday? Season 5 is similar to Season 2, even though the face punches per episode is dramatically below 1.0, but like Season 2's constant tension about pushing or not pushing the button, now it's the espionage and high stakes of the Losties living in the Dharma Initiative undercover and wondering what happens if they get caught. And Living Dead Locke, Sun, and Ben being 30 years displaced that makes it so intriguing. How will they unite the timelines? In the finale, we meet Jacob and the Man in Black for the first time for realsies. Now, we're getting an idea of what the show is all about. And it ends with a bomb, and in another tie to Season 2, a big white flash. The bomb is another key to understanding the ending of the show. In storytelling, a coincidence is often bad. The unarmed hero just happens to find a gun on the floor at the exact moment the villain is closing in. That sort of thing. There are a lot of, quote, coincidences in Lost, like Desmond showing up on the island years after he and Jack just happened to be running stair sprints at the same sports stadium in Los Angeles. Accepting this sort of coincidence and the larger plot arc of the whole show tends to hinge on whether or not you believe, because the island is magical, as an explanation for the unexplainable. If you do accept that, I think you love Lost. If you don't, you probably gave up on the show long before the finale. And so, without further ado, here's why you're wrong. I'm mostly going to skip the plot analysis and specific episode commentary for this season. Let's get to the meat. Because now we come to the end. What we've all been waiting for after 6 long seasons. There are 2 main questions. 1. What is the island? And 2. What happened to our Losties when the bomb went off at the end of Season 5? The answer to the first question is mostly a misdirection, and it began way back in the second half of the pilot episode of Season 1. Locke, when playing a game with Walt, said it's 2 sides, light and dark. We're supposed to believe this is a simplistic battle of good versus evil. So wait, am I saying it's not a battle of good versus evil? Not exactly. When we meet Jacob and the Man in Black, Jacob was in white, the Man in black, obviously. This is supposed to imply that Jacob is light and goodness and the Man in Black is evil, but this is a misdirection, a switcheroo. Here's my take. Jacob is not the benevolent being people think. This is the person who could have stopped Saeed's soulmate's death. He almost drowned Richard. He's been the architect of a lot of suffering. Jacob says the island is a cork and its main purpose is to keep the Man in Black there so he can't spread his evil on the world. I think this is a lie. I think this is not the real reason the island exists. Everyone talks about how dangerous and wicked the Man in Black is, but we've seen Jacob do bad stuff too. They're both petty and manipulative and willing to hurt people in service of their own needs. Then the Man in Black, who is now inhabiting Locke's body, says they think they're protecting the island from me when in fact all I want to do is leave. Is Locke / the Man in Black telling the truth? I think he is. Let's focus on the flashback episode that shows Jacob, the Man in Black, and their mother's time on this island long ago. My theory is that the whole show's conflict stems from the Man in Black killing their devious and magical mother, which, in that scuffle, she attacked him first, by the way. He didn't murder her, he was defending himself. But according to her, going into the heart of the island is a fate worse than death. So, quote, good guy Jacob throws the Man in Black down into the cave and therefore into the island's heart in a fit of rage. Kind of a dick move, Jacob. If I were the Man in Black, I'd be pretty resentful at you giving me a fate worse than death, too. But now, Jacob wants to punish the Man in Black until the end of time for killing their mother by keeping him trapped on the island, just as their mother trapped them both there and lied to them about nothing existing beyond the island. Jacob's purpose is not about saving the world, rather it's a sibling rivalry. As a teen, Jacob even asks his mother, "Why do you love him more than me?" That's what the whole show boils down to. and the great mystery of the island's purpose. It's a magical energy well, and Jacob uses its power to torment his brother because he's jealous their mother loved the man in black more. Jacob's motivation is not altruism, it's all about petty jealousy. We've seen, quote, daddy issues over and over again as a recurring theme on the show. Will they give us one last twist when we find out that the whole thing has actually been about a mommy issue this entire time? And what about our Losties? Were they dead the whole time? If you watched the finale and thought they were dead the whole time, what the hell? Then you didn't get it. They were not dead the whole time. More on that in a minute. Because when Juliet detonates the bomb at the end of Season 5, it makes it seem as if time has split into two paths. Path number 1, the island after the bomb with everyone back together in one timeline, merging 1977 and 2007. Path number 2, the real world as if the incident had never happened, meaning 815 never crashed and it flew safely from Sydney to LA. But the trick is, path number 2 is not real. It's a figment of the Losties' collective imaginations. More on that in a second. Stay with me, this is kind of complicated. Season 5 found our Losties divided and living in two places, 77 and 07. Jack wanted to detonate a nuclear bomb because he believed it would reset time and prevent the incident on the island that later led to 815 crashing because Desmond once failed to use the button inside the hatch. Jack wanted to give everyone a do-over, but detonating the bomb at the end of Season 5 did not undo the incident because, as Faraday kept saying in Season 5, you can't change the past. Whatever happened, happened. The incident happened, 815 crashed. The Losties lived and many of them died on the island. So what is happening in fake path number 2, the Season 6 side flashes where it appears 815 landed safely? In this sideways world, it looks like real life, but it's not real life. All these flashes are about the Losties wallowing in this dream world before coming to realize they're not supposed to be there, starting with Desmond seeing a flash of the Not Penny's boat hand from Season 3. He sees this flash of the real life he actually led on the island, not this altered and imaginary copy he's in. It's a false reality and they need to escape it, to let go. So Desmond spends Season 6 driving around LA as the ghost of reality past, and he shows everyone they actually once lived in the real world, not this fake copy. They once lived on the actual island world where Oceanic 815 crashed. That's real life. This path number 2 version they think they're in is like the Matrix. It's a Star Trek holodeck simulation. Or, as another way to look at it, this path number 2 version they're in is later. Much later. Maybe thousands of years after they've all died in the real world. They've all lived their lives and have now died, and they need to find each other in this afterlife waiting room so they can remember their real lives, because they've somehow forgotten what actually happened. So at the end of the last episode at the church, when Jack meets his father and Jack's dad tells him he's dead, he means he died on the island, possibly a long time ago. Jack died saving the island. He's not saying they were dead the whole time, which is what some viewers thought it meant. And they were alive when it happened. Jack's dad says everyone lived and then died, and there is no now. This sideways flash copy exists outside of normal time. Here, read the actual transcript of that conversation where Christian literally explains the ending of the show. It's apparent from this conversation they were not dead the whole time. Go ahead, read it. I'll wait. If it makes it easier to understand, think of the Season 6 sideways copy path number 2 world as purgatory, and it takes place 100 or 1,000 years after the events on the island. Frank, Miles, Richard, Kate, Sawyer, and Claire all escaped in the Ajira plane in Season 6. They went on to have normal lives, and then they died, and then ended up in the purgatory copy world together. The copy of life where 815 didn't crash is a world they, quote, built so they could all find each other, a holding pen for lost souls. Now they need to move on and accept that whatever happened, happened, and they're supposed to be together before they go on to whatever is next, the afterlife. And if you disliked the ending of the show because they didn't answer every single question raised and solve every mystery, then I can tell you this, you wouldn't have liked the answers given if they had anyway. Most of the mysteries were flavoring, not the point of the show. Think about it. If your complaint is, but they never explained why Walt is special, would it have been better if they'd shown a flashback of Walt being bitten by a radioactive mosquito that gave him psionic powers? No, that would not have been better than the default answer of, because some people are just special. And now, I'm done. I feel like I've done my job and corrected a terrible cultural mistake, and I'm sure there will be no need to debate this further. And with that, I'll see you in another life, brother.